Welcome to the Silicon Valley Capital Club Venture Capital Panel. This is our third event that we've had, thanks to Rob Lau. Every other month, we hold an event where we bring in venture capitalists. After all, this is the Silicon Valley Capital Club, to talk about the goings-on in what is obviously the most productive economic engine in the world. On behalf of the Silicon Valley Capital Club, the Board of Governors, and the members of the Business Forward Council, which sponsors this event, I'd like to welcome you all. And would like to thank Rob and Praveen Gupta and Joe Jason for attending. And Joe came from San Francisco, so thank you for making the trek south. And thank you for coming from beautiful Los Gatos. So again, just real briefly, for those of you who are members of the Capital Club, the Business Forward Council has 3 events that they sponsor. A monthly breakfast called the Capitalist Connection Breakfast. It's on the first Friday of every month, except for December and July. We hold also the Silicon Valley Insights Lunch once a quarter. And then this is our newest event that we hold again every other month. So thank you for attending. If you are a member of the Capital Club, thank you. If you're a guest, thanks for attending. And if you want to know more about joining the Capital Club, you can see anybody with one of these kind of goldish name tags. Rob, I'm going to hand it over to you. Did I forget anything? I'm going to hand it over to Rob. And again, thank you all for coming.
I would like to acknowledge the powers that be, the powerful people that run this club, for supporting this initiative. I'm going to start off with the most powerful person in this room. You just heard that? Ron Zrake. That's right. Ron Zrake, who's the chair of the Business Forward Council. Lynn Gross-Surf, who's chair of the Board of Governors. Bruce McKenzie, who's our club president. And Eric Lopez, who is the member relations director. So let's hear it for these powerful folks for supporting this event. So a little bit about the format. We're going to have a panel discussion. I'm going to moderate it, just basically make sure that no one talks too long. We're going to go till about 35 after. We'll open it up to questions from the audience. So audience members, hold your questions. We're going to pass the mic around because we're going to record this for the Capital Club YouTube channel. So it's something that we're developing as a learning resource that all the members can use. So right off the bat, once again, let's hear it for Joe Jason and Praveen Gupta. So why don't you guys talk a little about your background and what you do. Joe.
Cheers. My name is Joe Jason, and out of battery. Could be out of battery soon. Closer. My name is Joe Jason. I'm speaking close into the microphone. I will rap later. Okay, so my name is Joe, and I work for a firm called DNA Partners. Why are we called DNA? Because we are a venture capital investment firm investing in the entrepreneurial spirit of your DNA. Our tagline is, we invest in people. The specific vertical that in this whole Silicon Valley realm or beyond is we invest in digital media value chain technologies. Yes, that is a mouthful, digital media value chain technologies, but it's more the infrastructure of digital media, the transport of digital media. So when you're watching a Netflix movie, it goes fuzzy, clear, fuzzy, clear. That is the transport of digital media, and so it's doing some encoding, decoding, managing the content. So that's what we invest in, digital media value chain technologies. And our geographies are USA and China. And our rounds that we invest in, the typical phrase is rounds, is $50,000 to $500,000. So we're seed round investors. And we are in the trenches primarily in these cities. In San Francisco, obviously, San Jose, Silicon Valley area, LA, New York, Hong Kong, Beijing, Shenzhen, Shanghai, and a little bit of Xi'an and a little bit of Chengdu. And so we are definitely guys that are out in the trenches, like I said, trying to find small startup companies to invest in digital media. And I will typically, I know Rob wants us to speak concisely tonight, but contextually, so people do know us, we both have a similar background. We both have worked for SK Telecom out of Seoul, Korea, and that is the AT&T equivalent of South Korea, and our mandates were investments. And so when you work for a foreign company, you know, that's quite exciting and challenging at the same time, and it's a dynamic environment. My mandate was Investments USA and China, and I'll explain. And I just wanted to share that we have a close bond and we've known each other for a little while. All right, thanks.
Praveen.
Hi, my name is Praveen Gupta. I'm with HTC. Many of you might know HTC from the smartphone world. Today we are smartphone plus much more. So smartphone technology continues. Yes, we have gone down compared to Apple and Samsung, but we are continuing and we are really coming out with more innovative products. But we have diversified into virtual reality and augmented reality. We were the first one to launch our the head-mounted device called Vive, and since then we launched 4 more. So the latest one was about 2-3 months ago, called Vive Cosmos. We initially focused mostly on consumers, but over the last year and a half, the enterprise have started taking very keen interest in virtual reality, and I can talk more about as we go through a question. In addition to that, we are looking for all kind of applications that we can use for 5G and AI, integrating all those into our devices as well as software and services. So we do have a 5G hub out there selling today. Sprint, Telstra, Orange, and few other carriers around the world are selling that 5G hub. And those of you who don't know what it is, you all know routers and modems. Think of those two combined together in an Amazon Echo Show format. So it is running on Android. You have apps running on it. On one end, it has 5G. Other end is your Wi-Fi or Zigbee, all kind of other interfaces. That becomes your home hub. And eventually, we are hoping that will become the media hub of your home with the 5G connectivity. For me personally, so I run their investments, M&A, and strategic partnerships with startup companies. I invest globally. Our headquarters is in Taiwan, and our investment size is really off the balance sheet, and we got pretty big balance sheet. So it depends on what the strategic interest is, how close the ties are. We could go as low as 500K, and upper limit really, we've done the highest is $15 million in one round. Besides that, we also have an accelerator for virtual reality ecosystem called ViveX. And that one, we bring in companies, it's more like a Y Combinator, but it's more strategic rather than just operational. So 2 different vehicles of investments.
All right. So 2019 has been a very turbulent year. What stands out about 2019? What sectors were hot and what startups were hot? Joe.
What's hot? I don't know if this is on or not. What's hot? What's not? I don't have a crystal ball. I can look at the past as far as 2019. I think that cloud is an infrastructure play, and it is great, but it is very general. It's technically just servers sitting somewhere, whether you on your property or off of your property. So I would say, cloud was a little bit overhyped, and mobile is coming down a little bit. I think we're in Silicon Valley. We're at a point where the millennials are starting to wane out. And after the iPhone was launched, everyone thought they could come to Silicon Valley and start an app and become a billionaire. And it took about 10 years for that to kind of dissipate. And now we're getting back to more fundamentals of, okay, what's your business model? Are you creating revenue? What is your business model, and will it create revenue? Excuse me, I should have phrased it that way. And do you have an international plan? instead of just creating an app and launching on a Google Play or an Apple App Store or an Amazon App Store or an app store. There's many more app stores out there in the world than what we're normally hearing of in Silicon Valley. I don't know if it's not
not
good.
Oh, here, use it.
Battery running out. That's okay. Yeah, it's gone dead. I think battery running out too fast. Sorry about that. In terms of turbulence, I'll just focus on investment side. Really, the geopolitical issues like the trade tariffs, CFIUS law. You probably know CFIUS pretty well. CFIUS is the U.S. regulation with regards to foreign investment. And those have made a big impact on foreign investment in the U.S. And as a result, it has impacted venture capital industry and investments in a very significant way in 2019. If you look at the numbers for venture capital from about 2012, 13 through 18, it was growing at 17% per year in venture investment amount. This year, they're projecting maybe 5% compared to 18. And a lot of it is because of that. The good side for venture capital because of that is the valuations have come down for later stage companies. Because Chinese are investing at a very huge valuations and into unicorns and mega deals and all that. That isn't happening that much anymore, but it's still quite a bit out there. In terms of what's hot, really, cloud is still the play, but people don't call it cloud as the main play. They call more specifically SaaS. Software as a service, applicable to all kind of different industries, whether it's an enterprise play or fintech or agtech. And basically, it's more talking more about applications now instead of infrastructure. All the infrastructure is still hot, and with Amazon, Google, and Microsoft Azure taking over the cloud infrastructure market, there's not much more room left for others. So, just talking about applications, you got fintech, you got all kind of enterprise applications, then you have IoT, especially the industrial IoT is pretty big. And once you talk industrial IoT and also healthcare, AI is also has become pretty big. The challenge with AI is it's hard to say, oh, I invested in AI, because there is no one solution for all AI. Every application has its own unique algorithm. You have to sort of write a custom algorithm for everything. So it's hard to make investment in that area, but industrial IoT, for example, has manufacturing as a huge application. And if you had AI algorithms applicable to that, you could potentially address a bunch of different industries. So in my opinion, those are the key areas going forward. And 5G, of course, is coming up. Just like 4G created Ubers and Lyfts of the world, Airbnb and all that, 5G is going to create way more than that. It could be 10x of what 4G is.
I'm going to make a sidebar comment. So I agree that CFIUS is a possible inhibitor of transactions happening in the United States, but it's also an enhancement. So there's been other legislative divisions that have been out of Washington, D.C. that have been creating more rules to CFIUS. And those more rules and those laws and those more department heads, multiple department heads out of Washington, D.C. from different divisions, whether it's Department of Defense or Department of Commerce, they are doing it to, I don't want to use the word for protectionism, but it's for deeper due diligence. And so it's really to enhance transactions for us. And I sense that you know that already.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just wanted to make it clear that CFIUS isn't necessarily slowing us down, it's making us more articulate and more refined and more safe.
Right. Yeah. Actually, to add to that, it's helped us, being in the US, it helped us to make those investments. But for foreign investments coming in, it's not that it applies to everybody investing. Like we at HTC, money comes from Taiwan. We have not been hit by CFIUS yet. And the reason is the type of technology. There are 9 government agencies in the US government, and with 30 different departments under those 9 agencies. Each one of them, any one of them can stop the investment. So just imagine coordinating 30 agencies and getting their approval to get investment. And basically it applies to more sensitive technologies. Like just last week I was talking to a supercomputer company, and they're looking for investment. And first question they asked, have you been impacted by CFIUS? And I said, well, supercomputer, probably we will be. So that's how it goes.
I guess I'd like to. What's the definition of a supercomputer these days? We ask the Chinese and the Americans.
All right. 2019 had a very active IPO market. There were quite a few high-profile IPOs: Uber, Lyft, Slack, Pinterest, Beyond Meat. How are they faring as public companies, and why or why not? And what do you think will happen with the IPO market in 2020?
I think I'll be the dark side and you can be the light side. I'll be the dark side of the moon. So, as I look at Snap and Pinterest, to highlight the two of those, and Snap's not necessarily 2019, but you look at these two companies and they're founded on imaging technology and social media and social networking and horizontal communications between consumers worldwide. I guess I am wholeheartedly disappointed in their business model and revenue model. Why, again, Snap is out of Los Angeles and Pinterest is out of Silicon Valley or San Francisco here. Why, again, do we have a revenue model associated with just advertising? There's no rationale for this at all to me, except for that Wall Street puts up with it. And I think that other countries around the world apply more common sense and less hyperbolic attitude towards it of how do we get to the fundamentals of whether it's a tangible product or an intangible product. And we make money from advertising, or do we make money from subscription or from transactions? I mean, there's many different ways to make money from intangible products. And so I guess I get wholeheartedly depressed and disappointed about Silicon Valley once again with the advertising business model.
So it's hard for me to be on the bright side.
Oh.
But I'll start with the bright note and then go to the dark side. The bright side is that there have been a lot of IPOs this year where VCs have been able to get an exit. So from VC investment perspective, exits are still happening and they're making, or especially the early stage investors are making money. So that's the bright part. The dark side, like he said, is the revenue models, business models are not there. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was reading an article. I said, from IPO perspective, we are at the point where we were in 2000, before the crash. 70% of the companies that went IPO this year have no profit. And in fact, Uber even came out, Uber CEO came out at the last quarterly earning report or something, he said, we may never be profitable. And then look at what happened to WeWork, could not even go IPO. So it looks like that Wall Street is shifting a little bit, adjusting its own interest. And for next year, it may be flat from IPO perspective, partly because of the political environment and elections and all that, and partly just the adjustments that will need to happen. But it will have to return to what happened after the 2000 crash. We'll have to get some fundamentals in place, show the clear path of growth and revenues and real business. Otherwise, it's not going to work very well.
So I'll bring a little bit of light side of the moon to the equation here. Obviously, today is November 20th, 2019. Dreamforce conference is going on. That's hosted by Salesforce. Mm-hmm. Salesforce is a very good example of a subscription-based company, right, for enterprise market, not consumer. And we talked about Pinterest and Snap, and those are business-to-consumer companies, as we know. So I think if we look at a horizon of the United States and high technology, we look at more enterprise maybe right now, and that includes 5G. So, I mean, we want to look at 5G as an infrastructure play. Yeah, it's one generation above 4G, but it has a lot of different characteristics, and it has a lot more regulatory empowerment. So we have in respect to 5G, we have regulators around the world agreeing on a lot of common standards, which that has not happened in 2G, 3G, 4G. It has migrated, as a political force of just the mobile wireless industry becoming pervasive. So organically, it's become more regulatory friendly amongst worldwide nations and their top-down approach to mobile wireless technologies, and we're talking about GSM and LTE and all those protocols that the world doesn't need to know about, but the technologists do, and the regulators do. So in the United States, if we're talking about 5G, we are talking about bottom-up innovators in the trenches and top-down decision makers from regulators. And we, in the United States, we find a common ground, and we call it free enterprise. So let's continue with that theme in 5G, and let's not be concerned about what the other countries are saying, or how fast or slow they're deploying 5G, because I want to highlight that typically we invent the technologies here in the United States, okay? So we invent the protocol for 5G, how that's transmitted through the air. So I want to get back to the enterprise roots of why I went to the light side of the moon here was, as enterprises in the United States, as inventors or innovators, okay? Inventor would be, I invent a technology like software. Innovator would be like Apple, where you innovate on a technology and it's iterative on a technology. All you're doing is building a community, or you're building you're utilizing your licensing technology of like a mobile phone, and you're putting software on it, and you're building an app store, and you're building a community. That's an innovator. That's not an inventor. Thomas Edison is an inventor. He invented the light bulb. Steve Jobs didn't invent anything. Okay, so we have to acknowledge what is an inventor and what is an innovator. And let's get back to the theme of 5G. Our country is an inventor of 5G. And we are going to deploy it in different markets, and different operators are going to deploy it for different rationales, whether it's B2B or B2C. So let's consider the enterprise market. We consider, Salesforce. I know we're tapping here and I'm talking too long, but I am on a theme of free enterprise, okay? And I want us to know that we are inventors and we are innovators in 5G, and hyperbolics of what press say doesn't really matter in this situation.
All right, this is going to be my last question for the panel before we open it up to audience questions. This is the real reason why we brought you guys out here. So what's going to be hot in 2020 in terms of sectors? What's going to happen geopolitically, with the economy? We have a presidential election coming up. So I want to hear what your crystal ball says. And please note that you're on video.
All right. One of the things Robert asked us, he didn't say it right now, is sports. Niners could winning Super Bowl. Let's just focus on investment side first. So I think next year could potentially be flat from this year in terms of VC investments. Although there's a trend just within the last few months that the angel and seed level investments have increased significantly, even though later stage investments have gone down. And the funny thing is the deal volume has gone down, but the dollar volume has gone up. And I think part of it could be the function that there have been more mega funds, 500 million plus type of funds raised this year than the prior year. And once you have that kind of capital, in terms of retaining ownership and all that stuff, people just have to invest more for less ownership. And as a result, the mega rounds are going up. So that trend may continue. But it's getting back to like what I said earlier, more of quality deals with a true business model, true growth, rather than just, hey, like in 2000, I have eyeballs, revenue will come, don't worry about it. That's not going not happening. So I think that shift may happen next year. Geopolitically, I don't know about the tariffs and all that. I don't think that problem will get resolved until after the election. This will continue on. Elections, I'm not going to make a prediction. Most of us might know what happens. Who knows what happens in the next few weeks. Let's see, what else was there?
What's not?
Yeah.
So I have a leader saying, Joe, keep it simple. That's fine. I can keep it simple. I can say AI, cloud, all the typical statements. But I want to get a little more philosophical, and I will keep it simple. Technology is digital, yes, in this frame of age, and the pen is technology, and the wheel is technology. But we're in a digital sense of technology. why don't we utilize our 5 receptors as far as digital technology? Okay, so we have high resolution and low resolution for visual, for TVs. Why don't we have high resolution and low resolution for audio? Okay, so I guess I want you to think about our 5 receptors as human beings and think about Silicon Valley technology companies and how are they implementing us as human beings to implement utilizing our 5 receptors. On another comment beyond that, philosophically, I already mentioned 5G. It's an ecosystem that should be unique, new, empowering, worldwide, and it should be an architecture that you could be familiar with and you could build your startup companies around that. And you could do it B2B, B2C, B to government. You can build a lot of opportunity inside of 5G.
All right, well, let's hear it for the panel. Now we're opening it up to audience Q&A. However, we're just going to use that mic that Tim has. So that does not amplify, it just records for video. So you don't have to tell me it doesn't work. It works, it records, does not amplify. So who's got a question for the panel? Raise your hand. Raise your hand and speak up. Speak up.
And please state your name
It
and
is
company
on.
name. Name and company name.
What did I just say, dude? Saeed, it records, it does not amplify. So speak up.
So, my name is Saeed, and I've been working with Rob for some time now. And other than that, I have a real job, and I basically work in a startup. And we're basically doing, we're working on 2 aspects of content in the blockchain. One is with IBM with the media asset workflow for blockchain, and the other one is a subsidiary where we are doing content distribution for blockchain. The question is, does the esteemed panel think that there will be more traction and more companies entering with media asset solutions in the blockchain space in the coming years?
Oh, definitely. Of course. Yeah. I mean, look at today's announcement of Nielsen splitting their company into 2, right? One's, monitors physical goods and one monitors digital advertising. Absolutely. I mean, we want to grow out of a let's generalize here. We're in a Web 2.0 situation here where, 10 plus companies manage all of our platforms, right? So obviously blockchain is going to be diversified and allow us to be in a Web 3.0 away from those large conglomerates and be more individualized. So I wholeheartedly agree or state yes.
Yes. So, for me, it's a little hard to relate media and blockchain, so I'll talk more about blockchain first. So, most people confuse blockchain with cryptocurrency. Correct. And they're 2 separate things. Cryptocurrency is an application of blockchain. Sure. Blockchain in itself, actually, just so you know, we have a phone that we sell today, which is for blockchain. It's called Exodus. And that is basically is a node by itself for blockchain. It can do all the computation and everything. It's a secure thing. And the reason for that phone is any transaction, whether it's a media contract, digital currency, digital advertising, or smart contracts, home, whatever you name it, you can handle on that phone today. So, and media specifically hard to say, but yes, the kind of things that media will deal with, it will happen. But I think time frame is not next 1 or 2, 3 years. It's much longer than that. Yeah.
All right, next question. Next question. Pass the mic.
Sorry, I'm George Campbell, Key Design. I work with industrial design hardware. My question is with regard to your comments about 5G and also with HTC's involvement with VR and AR. What do you think the timeline is, the horizon line for getting actionable AR with all these other technologies coming together? What's your window for real AR in people's hands? The next paradigm in spatial computing.
Okay, so AR in reality will not happen until you have true glasses in roughly this kind of form factor. Magic Leap is not even close to what people want to have. So you got to get something like this, maybe a little bit striped on the side, but And that is probably 3-4 years away. Technologies just don't exist yet to get to that form factor. With regards to Verizon specifically, we are working with practically all carriers today because they are looking for high bandwidth usage applications for 5G. And VR is probably the best application in the near term. AR will come eventually. Verizon, if you go to any trade show where Verizon is there, they are showing all kinds of demos. But most of them are still sort of gimmicks at that bandwidth because the kind of bandwidth they're consuming, they say they're doing for 5G, but they're really showing it on Wi-Fi in those booths. But at the same time, they're working very actively with not only us, but a lot of content teams. In fact, AT&T, when they bought the Warner Brothers, they are now looking into VR, AR and how they can take Warner Brother content and put it on VR, AR and stream. I mean, HTC has a service, Netflix type of service for VR. We call it Infinity. You pay like I think $13 or $14 a month, and you get unlimited access to all the content in our marketplace. I think there are 700 pieces that are participating in that program. So it's that kind of thing. But the challenge there is you cannot do it walking on the street. You got to be on a Wi-Fi or you got to be tethered, and that is going to change soon. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes.
I do want to take a pass at it, of course. Industrial designer at one of our meetings. Great. Thank you for being here. I politely, not disagree, too strong of a word to disagree. I just think it'll be implemented a little bit faster. I think that AR does equate to you looking through, you with your plain eyes, looking through your tablet or your handset or your desktop or whatever, I don't really care what screen it is, your refrigerator, that you are able to see mapping issues, or also, from a B2C standpoint where you're out in the field or something and you're wanting to know what that game is or where your friends are or whatever. I'm fine with that level of AR being pervasive in the next 2 to 3 years. Not necessarily United States, okay? Because the United States is a little more finicky and a little more, they want high quality on whether it's hardware, software, and software services. There's other countries like the Philippines that are more hungry for unique, less resolution solution sets or something, I would say that we've had a great down round of eyeglass manufacturers that have failed, and I'm not including Snap in this discussion. So a lot of hardware manufacturers that we don't know of that are in other countries, Germany and China and some of the United States, have already failed at their eyeglasses, but there are companies in Korea and Singapore that are making very unique eyeglasses that are almost the same size as what you wear as spectacles. They're etching in the glass and they're beaming down with mirrors onto the eyeglasses. So there's some patents that are out there that you could definitely research. And then my last comment associated with it is, I think as far as enterprise solutions with architecture firms and construction companies, I think that in the United States they'll be the first to adopt, and it'll be just like a apparatus on top of your hard hat, and it'll be an awesome industrial design. It'll be very light, and it'll just clamp onto your hard hat, and then it'll have a quick battery power, and it'll only do 1 to 10 functions.
All right, next question. Pass the mic.
Irfraz Siddiqui from Smart Bumper Sticker. In the last election, we gave the social media our data and they sold it to Russians. Right now, after 4 years, social media is almost the same. You can still buy likes on Facebook. You can still buy followers on Twitter. $5, you get 1,000 followers, I can get you. And on Twitter and Instagram, same thing. So social media is almost the same. Are we going to take care of this monster we have created? Because government cannot take care of it. It has to come from us, from technology. Government can make regulations, but is anybody doing something about it?
I'm going to interject
Are we ready for next elections?
Paraphrase your question. It's all in respect to the business model of advertising and selling metadata to corporations, right, that want the metadata. So you have volunteered your metadata. You know that. So for you to complain to me, a venture capitalist, like, oh, why is my metadata being sold, Joe? You checked all the boxes. You wanted the free service.
People did it, yeah.
Yeah, including you. I did not. I did not. Okay? I didn't join Meetup, and I didn't join Facebook, and I didn't join, I didn't join these. And I don't use an Android or an iOS phone. I don't use that operating system. So, it comes down to democracy, right, and choice. So do you want to share your data for the convenience, right? You have obviously, the majority of consumers around the world have chosen free is good. Well, it's in the fine print, right? And I know that, and I know this. Obviously, I know we all want to protect everyone around the world, of course. I'm just being blunt here, but obviously, all of us are not lawyers where we can't read and understand every single privacy policy, right? I understand that. But you have the option to say I terminate, right? Or I choose not to be part of that. So that's all I want to say.
Well, I did terminate. I had opened a Facebook account. A month later, I terminated. That was 6 years ago.
Use the mic if you have a follow-up.
The majority of us did not choose that. That's the reason?
Well, let me shift the topic a bit. So, if you look at the demographics today, you ask the millennials, are they okay with privacy thing? They have no issue at all. So, is the generation before the millennials where we worry about, but millennials don't really care.
I was going to follow up on that. While I appreciate Joe's comment, and that's one side of the equation, isn't one of the biggest risks that model in many companies if the government does step in and intervene with the privacy? If they can't sell the data, what do they have left to sell? It's a very disruptive challenge.
It's called subscriptions. Yeah.
It'd be a
it's
tsunami,
called.
though. It'd be a tsunami through the industry.
Yeah.
Would you not agree?
That's the choice. It's kind of like smoking. The analog here is smoking a cigarette. Okay.
The question is this: I don't mind sharing my location, but I will mind if somebody comes and kill me because of that sharing.
So then you only pay $1
Yeah, that's the thing, So that's what has happened. We have given them data, but that it doesn't mean that they should use it to rig the election.
That was your choice.
The solution is just use a rotary phone like Joe.
I don't use a regular phone.
Rotary.
I use a smartphone.
So my question is, do you think there's a legitimate risk that government might intervene to a degree that would disrupt the business model?
It's possible.
In this climate in Washington D.C., no. Because I'm not being snarky at all. I'm being serious. I'm getting moderated by the moderator about my moderating of my words here. So I'm being censored when we're talking about Washington D.C. Okay?
Don't go to Berkeley, Joe. They'll never let you speak.
Rob knows I'm going to state my opinion, but I'm always going to be diplomatic. And I want to look at both sides, the black and the white side, absolutely. And as a venture capitalist, I better be looking at it, or I'd be naive, right? And I better be looking through an international lens. I better be. So I think with this administration, in era of this administration, I'm not talking about the person that runs the White House. I'm just talking about an era of this administration, whether it's a bunch of gray hairs like me, or some people that do understand technology a little bit better. And right now we're learning it from the United Kingdom about how to have a privacy policy, which I think is a phenomenon. And we do learn from each other around the world. We're all just humans living amongst the earth here. But I don't think this administration knows how to be proactive in creating new laws. What they want to do is break, right? They'll just try to break up situations.
All right, we probably have more questions in the room. So who else has a question? Pass the mic. Oh,
I have a question.
that's closer. Pass the mic there.
So we have spoken a lot about 5G, and one of the reasons why we are looking at 5G is for the data speeds. But with the first 12 satellites of SpaceLink out there, how do you think will 5G compete with gigabit, gigabit by SpaceX? So that is going to provide data speeds of 200 GB plus in the remotest village in Africa once they have their mesh up there. So is 5G really going to be the direction, like the data provider that we'd be looking for in the future?
Okay, so first, 5G standard asks for 1 gigabit per second minimum speed and up to 10 gigabit per second, with 1 millisecond latency desired versus 10 millisecond what you might be getting today. So that's just a standard technical spec. The 5G or even LTE for that matter is not just about communication. You look at your telecom, the phone plans today, your talk and text is unlimited included in the plan. They just charge you for data. So it's all about applications. It's all about what you do with it. Today, you try to do a video on your phone walking on the street or sitting in a cafe. After a while, they start slowing down your speed. So SD works okay, HD doesn't work that well. With 5G, they're required to have that less than 10 millisecond latency, even if you're playing 4K video on it. And once you get that kind of speeds, 1 gigabit plus type of speeds, you will be using more video-based apps, more FaceTimes, more WhatsApp video calls, things like that. I mean, that's just the basic applications. And then you can't even imagine today what kind of applications may come up from a consumer as well as industrial perspective. Just think about, a typical manufacturing site, which has robots and all that running. There's so much wiring that is there and so much power requirement that is there, you could practically eliminate all of that with 5G. Now you build up applications to run all these machines off the 5G. I mean, they're just huge applications saving tons of money. So it's not about geographic location, Africa versus US versus Europe. It's more about what applications. Don't think in terms of communication.
I'm gonna address you. I'm gonna address your question directly. Okay. So you have a great perspective here from two different individuals that both have worked for SK Telecom, one of the most advanced mobile operators in the world. Okay. So I will answer your question directly. You did not come here taking highways only. Okay. So that would be the equivalent of being a freeway or a highway would be the satellite. In 1998, 97, 95, you maybe had an alphanumeric pager. That is a satellite-driven text message from a satellite, and then it goes down to the terrestrial networks, okay? So to answer your question directly, it's what we can make networks work together. So satellite can work with 5G or 4G or 2G or Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi 6 or, the technologies, we call them topologies, okay? And network protocols, air interface network protocols that work with each other. So those can interface together, okay? And the computer chips are getting more and more advanced to have multiple protocols of air interface, 5G or satellite. I'm being very progressive here to the camera. People would be spamming me right off if I would. You can't do that today. You can't do that today. But we're getting there, yeah, and it's not like we're getting there, we haven't done it. We've already done it, but to connect a new network with another new network, it just takes a little bit of time.
So you envision the two of them coexisting?
Yeah, there's already something called the IPv6 Council and Wi-Fi 6 and 5G. They're already all working together, and then if you want to tap in satellite links into that, it's very possible to do that.
I mean, they coexist today.
I hope Elon Musk plays along though.
Even the LTE today, satellite-based networks and LTE, they coexist today. So there's nothing changes there. It's just a better usage, better way of using them.
Thank you.
All right, next question.
So kind of dual pronged, but for the first one, what percent of 5G of investment that's going to be made in the 5G space would you say has been made now, as far as data towers, infrastructure, apps, everything else? And on top of that, I guess looking forward to what the next step is going to be, whether 6G. So in terms of companies that plan for the next thing, companies that have been planning for 5G since 4G, maybe even a little bit before that, how do companies start thinking about when is the right time to really make that investment before the technology is there, but to get ahead of everything else?
So timing answer is easy. Because if you look at the growth of the increase in the telecommunication speeds and networks and all that, you can start from 2G onwards. It's practically every 10 years, the new generation comes in, 2G to 3G to 4G. So 4G happened around 2010. 3G was around 2000 and like that. So, and 5G is happening 2020. So roughly 10 years. So 6G is probably 10 years from then. So timing part is easy. Investment wise, the beauty of 5G is in most cases you can upgrade the base station itself by software, and then integrate the small cells like Wi-Fi or other networks, integrate them all together, and that becomes your mesh. They call it mesh network. Those of you in telecom industry know that. It's a mesh network, and that's what creates the 5G. The idea of 5G is smaller cells compared to LTE. So today when you walk around, you see these big towers, but that covers about 1.5 to 2 miles radius. With this, you're talking half-mile radius. And unfortunately, in the US, there's so much regulation about where you can put the tower, municipality regulation. The AT&T Verizons of the world are already facing the trouble because people don't want base stations in their neighborhood. So, in terms of so timing is not an issue. CapEx it'll be more than what happened at LTE because now you're talking small cells. But what the startups and other companies should do in terms of future applications, and so they don't get obsoleted with the new network, that really depends. And unfortunately, I don't have that chart in front of me. There's a very nice chart, you can Google it probably, that shows the economic, or rather GDP growth from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G and projected to 6G. 4G to 5G, they're talking 10x in just the telecommunications related span, which includes creation of applications like Uber and Lyft and of the world. So, I mean, that's really the thing. It's hard to predict, but right now they're talking revenue-wise 10x.
Cool, thank you. I would say we're in the 5% investment from large corporations and in the 0.05 from small corporations. And we're aligned on this together. And I want to share with you that if you want to track the United States, if you're launching a company in the United States, then track 5G with Qualcomm's press releases and Qualcomm's announcements and Qualcomm's interviews on CNBC. It's very healthy, I mean it. And also track Verizon's press announcements on their website and AT&T. Not T-Mobile or Sprint yet. They're just not there, and they may merge, and we don't know. But you could definitely follow the funding from that point, and then strategic alliances, and you'll notice that Los Angeles will get really excited about this because of the bandwidth. And then when Los Angeles starts to get excited about it, then the VR, AR companies will get even more excited, right? They'll get even more empowered, and the handset manufacturers. So keep track of the technology and protocols, and then look at the FCC website every now and then, and read between the lines on the FCC website.
Just as a reference, so there is a market analyst, his name is Chetan Sharma, Chetan. He is focused on all this communication tech. If you go to his website, just Google him. Go to his website, you will find a bunch of literature about 5G and growth and things like that. And that's where I saw the chart that I mentioned. Yeah.
Chetan Sharma, and he is he's quoted a lot in the Wall Street Journal. He's out of Seattle, and he's also very active with the CTIA, the Cellular Telecommunications Internet Association, out of Washington D.C. So he's not a big press guy. You're not going to see him on CNBC, but you're going to read about him in the Wall Street Journal.
Get on the mailing list. You'll get the emails.
We know him. He's a cool guy. He's under the radar, kind of. He doesn't self-promote.
All right, maybe you have time for maybe one good question. I'm not saying yours wasn't good.
Great question.
So who's got a good question for the final question for tonight? Who's got a question? I scared everybody. Right there. Right there. Oh, go ahead.
Blue short sleeve shirt.
My name is Cyrus Gazvini. Thank you guys for coming tonight. I wanted to ask you guys a question. There was a very interesting program on Frontline, the PBS series on AI, and I highly recommend everybody check it out. One of the segments of it, they were talking about China and how they're creating this kind of this police state, with all these technologies you guys have been talking about, the AI, facial recognition, the 5G, and so on. So I wanted you guys to just maybe touch base on that and where all this may be going in that sense as it comes stateside. And then just, from the privacy perspective, like why did the United States block, Huawei, and why can't we have their phones here? And just the safety, of the 5G.
Who would you like to answer first? Come on, you have to say it.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
He's not going to get a chance.
No, that's not fair.
Go ahead. What is good? You got a gavel out.
So, AI is obviously a newer acronym called artificial intelligence. That's not the acronym, but it's AI is a technology that's been around for 30 years. Okay, and it's really just algorithms, and it's whether it's a human algorithm made or a machine algorithm made or a hybrid of the both. So it's really an algorithm that helps compound technology, compound software development, compound another algorithm, compounding. So your question is respect two parts to China, and we both can answer that because we're both in those marketplaces. One is the United States is more regulated on privacy than China. So if we're doing less facial recognition at every check-in of a hotel, or on our driver's license, or wherever you might get your facial recognition, your facial picture taken, that's less data. So, for example, when I check into a hotel in China with a Chinese person, they take their picture of their face and not mine, because it's legal for them not to take mine, and not legal for them to take, excuse me, I phrased that incorrectly. They have to take the picture of the person that's Chinese, and they don't have to take mine because I'm American. So once you have more data, you're going to have more compounding of algorithms, and you're going to have more compounding of AI technology. Just note that the initial algorithms of AI technology, or algorithms inside software, are invented in the United States. So they're compounding our inventions of, they're innovating on AI, so to speak. Why Huawei? I definitely want him to answer this question as well. But I've been in Huawei's offices many times in Shenzhen, China, many times about product development questions. I think as one guy on planet Earth, the 7.5 billion people, why would we hesitate to implement Huawei technology into the United States? It's already here, by the way. Why would we hesitate to implement more of it is that this is a 100% government-funded company. It is not a public company. So the reason why it's been around since 1987, when it was founded, is because the majority of the funding came from the Chinese government. So I don't know any USA companies that have been around since 1987 that have become multi-billion dollar, $100 billion companies. So it's up to the Chinese government to dictate how they want that product development path going with Huawei. So as an American, why would we choose to have a government product from China in our geographic location, right, when it could be manipulated at any time? It's not free enterprise, and it's not a public company out of China, it's not a public company out of the United States, so they can do software upgrades anytime they want over the air.
So let me address the Huawei part first, then I'll go to AI. So I don't know how many of you know how Huawei got started initially for the revenues. It was around, I think, early 90s. They stole, or rather bought, one of the Cisco routers back then. They reverse engineered the hardware, the firmware, everything. Built up a router that looked exactly alike, and they sold it for, I think, 1/3 or 1/4 the price to a small company in Austin, Texas. So this IT manager, and this is a true story, so I'm not cooking it up. This IT manager, he booted up the router, saying, hey, I paid only 1/4 the price. This is really cool, and he convinced his boss to get a new router. Anyway, he booted up, and on the screen it says Cisco. Copyright XYZ, whatever the year was. And this guy said, I thought I bought a Huawei. So he shut it down. He thought he didn't plug it right. He went and checked all the wire cables, rebooted, Cisco again. So then he called the Cisco sales rep who used to sell in the Cisco stuff. He said, hey, guy, you got to come in right now. Something's not right here. So he came over and he showed him. So this sales guy took the router. He said, I'll pay you double the money. Keep it. I'll take the router away. So he took it, and after the case happened, Huawei ended up paying $4 billion penalty to the US government. Some of that went to Cisco for the losses. And that's where they started. And since then, every government around the world has been suspicious of what is in that code. I mean, they were so stupid, sorry to use that word, but they not only copied the firmware of the board, even the documentation, hard copy saying copyright Cisco. And they're shipping that with the router. That was the seed of why people got afraid. And then what he just said is exactly right. It's government funded. It was started by a retired Major General of the Army of China. And that's how this company was going. So today, you have no clue what happened inside. I know for sure the Indian government asked them to provide the full source code of their routers before they will approve it. Huawei refused to give it. So India never approved it.
Even if you had the source code, they could change it anytime they want.
Yeah, exactly.
Over here, right?
So those are the issues around Huawei. There's a lot of, it's not just Huawei, there are a few other companies like that. Why people are not afraid of, say, Baidu or Alibaba, because they're really private companies, public now, but there's more trust there. But anything controlled by government, you just can't trust. Going to AI. So it's true, we are the innovator and inventor in the whole AI thing. Unfortunately, what is happening lately is Chinese government is pumping billions and billions of dollars into companies, just giving them away, research in AI, do this for AI. And believe it or not, they're ahead of us in autonomous driving, especially for public transportation. I don't know how many have you gone to the SVIEF events here in the Valley? So 2 years ago, there was a guy, Kai-Fu, I forgot his last name. Kai-Fu, yeah. Kai-Fu Lee, right. So he was there. He's an American citizen, but he spent a lot of time in China. And he basically said, we are less than 5 years behind US right now in China. And he actually wrote a book on that. I don't believe him that, but that's what he's claiming. And just believe if Chinese government tells these people, we are only 4 or 5 years behind, here's more money, go do it. They will get ahead, given that all the politics and partisanship and everything that goes on here, nothing gets done. And companies don't invest enough because they have to report to Wall Street, all the profits. So we may fall behind. And in terms of privacy laws and all that, again, I mean, we worry about privacy, that AI doing face recognition and this and that. How many times you drive through these public streets and cameras looking at you? And FBI has every one of your picture today. I mean, they have it. They can recognize. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the show 24, right? How quickly they figure out who was on the street and all that. Because they have huge database already. Your fingerprints and your face. So, again, even if they collect, unless you're doing something wrong, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Actually, you do have to worry about it because you're misinterpreted. You could be misinterpreted. If you right now you put an APB out on a white Mustang on 101, they'll pull over all the white Mustangs. Yeah. So you could be misinterpreted.
Well, those things happen even today.
Yeah. So, but the compounds.
I mean, I've been frisked at the airport when the whole big things are happening with a black hair, Asian-looking face, stopped me. Yeah.
So Kai-Fu Lee, I have a closing thought. I'm gonna wind this down. Kai-Fu Lee stated at that SVIEF conference and in his book that the United States invented the algorithms for AI and that the Chinese will be ahead of them in 5 years because of all the compounding data that they're going to get.
Right.
And he said, I don't know where it's going to be after the 5 years.
Right.
So I just want to articulate that clearly. And also with Huawei, I attended the GSMA Mobile World Congress show in Shanghai and was a speaker at that show. And Huawei had a booth there, if you want to call it, It was a very, very large outlay, almost took up a whole exhibit area. I don't know how many thousands of square meters it was. But what put me in the shock was the most was when you enter the booth, it had just like you enter an office building, the gates that go open, and you scan your badge and facial recognition to go into their booth. So an individual human, scan your badge, the gates that open, and facial recognition. And I thought, wow, this is the only booth that's doing this in all of this conference in June 2019. And that was a huge telltale for me. And they had their own badge scanner that was about this thick. It was a box like this thick. So they were collecting everyone's information that went into their booth. That was shocking. So that was like, to me, that was like, okay, that is not democracy. That is capitalism at its best right there, starting. And I didn't go into the booth because I was just like, wow, do I really need to see a new handset? You know, a new picture of a handset or touch it? But that was a shocking moment for me. And so what I want to say in my closing note is, if any of you are, of course, interested in the future of advanced or high technology in this room, automatically you should always go to Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas every year. The CES show, I don't get any benefit from what I'm saying. I'm not biased in any way. It's a beautiful benchmark to know what's going on in the world as far as hardware, software services, and content. So the whole Aria Hotel is focused on content and discovery and Hulu, and they're all there. So it's a whole new world, and it's a great benchmark to kick off the new year.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. All right, let's give it up for the panel.